Slides with mostly pictures because it's after lunch, and I want to keep your attention for just a few minutes to talk about MiddlePrise. It's a term we started using a few years ago. I think other people started using it as well. What is it all about? So I'm going to talk a little bit about that and about where some of the technology is going to fill the gaps. So speaking of living on the edge, we don't realize it, but all of us live on the edge every day. The edge of the network is everywhere that we are, in our homes, in our businesses, in this building right now. It affects us everywhere that we go. The edge of the network is absolutely everywhere. It's also where the largest amount of technology changes are happening. It's where the biggest investment's going to be, and without a doubt, where the most opportunity in terms of dollars are. So it is definitely a big opportunity. What that means, though, is that the solutions are going to change in order to solve that. If you've seen me speak, you've heard me talk about edge densification and densification solutions, because that's what Solid does. But the ecosystem is changing, right? The core networks are going to change from the traditional MSC switch-type architecture to software-defined and network function, NFV, basically, NFV solutions. So it's going to basically be more software oriented. We're starting to see all kinds of new technologies. For a few years now, I've been talking about IoT. What is IoT? Well, everything's connected. So that means everything becomes the edge. Solid is big in the IoT. We make chipsets now and devices for the IoT, and it's absolutely the next big thing for this industry, because that means the edge gets even bigger. So a wide variety of technology that has to go into making the edge happen. So where is it? Where is the edge? Where is the MiddlePrise? So everything ranging from the tier 1 all the way to residential, outdoor, rural. Where are those things, right? The two that I think that we're talking about here with regards to the edge and the MiddlePrise are really what I think the two most critical areas are. And one is the middle-size enterprise, or MiddlePrise as well, and also dense urban, which is essentially the city core. And what does that look like if you kind of dig a little bit further in detail? It looks something like this. It's somewhere between 100 and 500,000 square feet. It's not the top of the pyramid, which is the stadiums and the other venues that we like to talk about, because they're super interesting and we can relate to it, right? Because we all go to sporting events. And they're also not the femtos that go in their house, because we know that a lot of people have those, and it's a huge volume, but it's not that interesting, right? Because it's very low dollars, and it's not something that most of the people in the room are necessarily working on, which is a high volume area, though. It's everything in the middle. And you can see from what I've listed there, it ranges in square footages, it ranges in venue types, and that is the opportunity for the next decade or two. It is estimated somewhere, our estimates currently peg it at over $20 billion. I think that's going to grow continuously. I think it's very underestimated. I don't think we realize how crazy this is going to be. But this middle section of the business is something that a lot of people are looking to address. And I won't call it untapped, because all of us have solved for some kind of a venue or project in the middle, but we had to force it. We had to force the carrier, we had to force the building owner, we had to really, really want it. Everyone had to really want it, and that makes it not repeatable if you have to do things that way. So that's why there needs to be some changes in that. So some of the challenges, of course, are, and everyone is, if you're in this business, you face some of these challenges here. Your technology toolkit. Is it small cell? Is it DAS? Is it a BTS? Is it all these different? Is it passive? Is it active? There's a whole. Is it Wi-Fi? What are you going to use to solve those things, right? So we've all faced those decisions, and what do we recommend to the customer? The business models, no doubt, is obviously a continuous battle of how to monetize it, how to make it. Since we can't always own the BTS, how do we deal with monetizing that? How do we make that easier for the operator? The design and infrastructure. I mean, you work in old buildings like this, the infrastructure is a nightmare to install. So what does that look like? How does this technology have to change in order to make facilities like this much easier to deploy? And most importantly, and you've heard us talk about this, is public safety, safety in general. Can't forget about it. You know, when you deploy a system, you can't just think about the monetary, you know, the payback from the operator standpoint. The building owner needs to be educated about safety requirements, potentially talking about the authority have its jurisdiction and say, look, you know, what's the future look like? What do we need for this building? Safety is absolute requirement. Granted, it's defined by city, jurisdiction by jurisdiction, but absolutely needs to be addressed, and sometimes it can be a challenge. So this is probably my most important slide that I'd like to kind of run by you. And that is, so we've talked about those spaces, and we've all been involved in projects that kind of fit in some part of that. But if you look at what the core problem is to be able to address this $20 billion, let's say, let's use my number, $20 billion segment for the next decade, the two biggest challenges are infrastructure, which is we need a better infrastructure. We need some new technology, and there's some of it already becoming on the market. So you have things that use cat cables, you can use fiber, so things that are maybe not coax based, right? Things that can install a little bit better. You have electronics that are much smaller, operate on lower power, don't have fans, make noise, and you can deploy them anywhere, not just in the IDF closet. You might be able to deploy them on a lot of other places. So that's a better infrastructure, or you can even call it a better DAS, is absolutely required. And over the next 3 years, you're going to see a lot of new creative solutions be brought to market. The other thing that I like to call that on the infrastructure is the physics side. It is delivering from a telecom room in this building to this room. That's essentially the physics, because they're not going to want 20 or even 5 or even 4 small cells hanging on the ceiling because it's pretty and they don't want to mess it up with a bunch of active electronics. So they're going to want to hide stuff, right? And that's hard when you have active powered devices. So that the physics of delivering that RF to the end user, this is the final edge, there's going to be all types of new solutions, and that's where you're going to see a lot of change. The other side, and this is the most important side of things, is really the carrier services. And that's where we're going to see massive changes. With SDN and NFV, what you're going to have is the architecture is opening up. You're going to have vendors like Solid and new vendors that we've never even heard of coming out with solutions that will be able to connect to the new generation of core networks. And this is going to allow the carriers to do what they do best, which is supply service, and allow the product manufacturers and the installers and the service providers to do what they do best, and that's install infrastructure and make things work inside buildings. In the next few years, this is all going to come together where we can actually call on a customer that says, I have this building and I want to have this operator and this operator because it's important to me. And he can actually buy a system that is technically pre-approved by those operators for use as a technology. So that at that point, yes, there could be some negotiations. Yes, you can negotiate on capital. But in terms of if the customer really wanted a system and he didn't want to wait for anyone, he wanted to do it, and he wanted to fund it, he could technically do so by buying the equipment and just signing an agreement to handle the licensed bands, which is something the carriers don't have an issue with as long as it's done right. So that's all going to be coming together in a very cost-effective format to address this $20 billion industry. And you're going to see it here in the next few years. It's coming really quick. You can see a lot of the moves that all the big players are making, and it actually makes the whole business that much more exciting to be able to address this big part of the market. So, like I said, it's a once in a decade opportunity, and it's more exciting than ever. For those of you who've been in the in-building business quite a long time, or not, it is a huge opportunity to cover all those buildings that are not being provided service for today, and this is exciting for the operators too, because they want to supply service. They just don't want to buy people's equipment in buildings, and they don't necessarily want to maintain stuff in the buildings. They want other people to do that, right? And they're willing to pay for some of that too, and that's hopefully where they step up and provide the pipes. So we'll see how that shakes through. So that's really what I wanted to say in my few minutes, and if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer a question. Excellent. Well, enjoy your rest of your day, and see you this evening for drinks. Thanks.